under our first module, again, which is called creating a high performance, which is what you do first in corporate, right? You build your team, right? I don't know how many of y'all have been at this level or not, but if you have, feel free to speak up because I'll share my experiences so this will make sense. But I also need you to share your experiences if you've been down this route before, running a project. Within creating a high-performing team with the course content, the first thing you do is build your team. That makes sense, right? It didn't used to say that with the old exam. The next thing you want to do is define team rules, because once you get a group of people together, you need some rules in place. If you're autocratic and working by yourself, that's easy. But just because you think you're cool, everybody else doesn't. So there has to be team ground rules amongst 15, 20 people. Then you want to negotiate project agreements. Well, what type of agreements? We'll get to that in a second. You as a servant leader and as a transformational leader that's over that project, you want to empower your team and the stakeholders along with it. We'll talk about the distinction between those. And there's not, well, then you want to train your team members and your stakeholders, you meaning you, the project manager. Then you want to engage and support virtual teams, which we've already done now because of COVID, right? And then your job is to also build a shared understanding about whatever project that you're governing or being a servant leader to, right? So this is our module, and these are the topics under that module. There's 7 of them. Okay, now we got all these people together, right? We got our team together, we got our stakeholders together. Well, they're not together, but they're there. Now what we do, we lead our team. I say lead, not demand. We lead our teams to defining team ground rules. In other words, how we're going to treat each other, right? So if you think about it, every step along the way is logical instead of being technical from the old way of doing it, meaning 6th edition on back. It's logical. So this is going to help you on the exam. I mean, you can really point out where you are in the process, which module you're in, which topic you're in. So we got a team. So now we define team ground rules. That logically makes sense, right? So here's some of the deliverables, tools, and techniques. So some of the techniques, by the way, are on the tools anyway, are normally on the right side. The outcome or deliverable are normally on the left side. So we got our people together, and what we're going to do is start using negotiation skills, and we'll see why in a minute. Now that we got a lot of people together, guess what one of your skill sets is going to come into light? Conflict management. Once we got a lot of people together, it's going to be conflict, right? Brainstorming is another tool that we use within the confines of our team. And then ethics, in other words, how we treat people, right? Not just us, how team members treat each other. Outcomes or deliverables that come from defining team rules is our team charter, which we'll find out what that is in a second, and our team norms. Okay. Team norms, they are agreed upon standards of conduct for all of our team members and kind of some of our stakeholders. So what we want to do is we want to establish these norms early in the project as soon as possible, so we can set the stage, for appropriate range of behaviors, right? So again, an agreed upon, set of mutually agreed rules. We align our team norms with what we call the PMI Code of Ethics. Remember I told you chapters 1 through 3 of the PMBOK is foundational. Chapter 4 is such and such. There's 13 chapters, but that 13th chapter is PMI Code of Ethics, which aligns itself with that cultural awareness, that emotional intelligence. In other words, how we act and how we behave as a project manager. Now, you may think PMI takes this serious. I'm going to explain this thing real quick because the chapter 13, which is also in your exam prep book, chapter 13, Code of Ethics, it's on the exam. You may get 4 or 5 questions on the exam. Here's how serious they take that. Once you attain your PMI credentials, you are assigned a number, a PMP number. Mine is like 1822273 or something like that. Well, if somebody wanted to report information about you that you really have bad conduct on site, like I used to be a contractor, so I used to bounce from site to site, depending on who paid me more, right? Well, there's a code of ethics that you have to abide by under PMI standards. And if somebody can actually, there's a site, in that portal on PMI, there's a place where you can actually pull up and type in somebody's PMI number, which companies will ask you for also when they're interviewing you. they can type that in and find out if you're really truly a PMP. And they can also use that to report bad conduct or inappropriate conduct. What PMI does will investigate that, and they will revoke your credentials. So they mean what they say about this code of ethics, right? So again, we just talked about that. There's 4 when you read that thing. And again, this is definitely on the exam, but it's very easy to an extent. In other words, it's pretty much about how you treat people, right? But there's 4 sections under PMI Code of Ethics: responsibility, respect, fairness, and honesty. That is one chapter you're going to have to read. Again, PMI tests are pretty tricky. They have you thinking on a particular question that taking money is a good thing. No, it's not. Right? Team charter. This is one of our outcomes from building a team and setting ground rules. And again, read that real quick. Again, this is another PMI document. Again, as we already spoke, what the team charter includes: shared values with the team, or about the team, our guidelines for communications, how the team makes decisions, how the team resolves conflicts when disagreements occur, how and when the team meets, and other team agreements such as shared hours, improvements, things like that. Okay. Here are ground rules, which is another outcome or deliverable, clearly set in stone. These ground rules are included in the charter. Okay. Why are these ground rules there? A, to keep us in line, right? But we're all professionals. But you know, every now and again, the conflicts can get pretty heated. I've seen it. I've been a part of that. And I've once in my career as a PM, I've had to put somebody off the team, only once. But I didn't think it would ever come to. I really did. It never occurred to me that I would have to do that. But it happened once in my career. So what we're doing is just we're trying to decrease, just as any contract, right, between 2 people. You're not trying to box someone down with a bunch of yin yang. What you're trying to do is protect yourselves, because when there's conflict involved, all you got to do is go back to the contract. What does the contract say? That'll resolve most of the issues. Well, that's what these ground rules do. Ground rules also include this one thing that nobody talks about, but it includes what to do if the team member gets out of hand. The team agrees on kicking somebody out, or okay, whatever happens that the team agrees on as a consequence, right? So that's part of the ground rules. What if they break? What if someone breaks the rules? Well, the team decides this is what's going to happen. So if that does happen, all we got to do is go back to the ground rules. Negotiation skills, again, as PMs, as PMs, this is a constant. I mean, 50 times a day, you're negotiating something with someone, because again, 90% of the time as PMs, we're communicating. It's written or verbal, right? And that whole time that you're communicating with someone, you're negotiating something, right? So that's a skill set that's a standout for a project manager. Well, internal and external communication, again, when it comes to negotiation, but also collaborating with people, managing expectations, right? And definitely conflict management. There's going to be 3 or 4 questions, on the exam around conflict management, but that's going to be covered over in the human resource part of it. They got different tool sets that we use to resolve conflict under PMI umbrella. Okay. We all know what conflict management is, but there's technical terms to it. When it comes to PMI, we'll get to those later, but right now, that's just part of building a high performance team, right? These are skill sets that not just you, the project manager, will need, but it's skill set that your entire team is going to need. And that's where that servant and transformational leadership characteristics that not just you should have, but most of the team. But if they don't see you doing it, then they won't. So it behooves us to be aware of all these things. That's what taking this course is about. That's what PMI put these set of standards out there for. Okay, as a PM, That's what your credentials say. Once you attain your credentials, you're telling the company, I know about all this stuff. I know about conflict management. I know about team appraisals. That's what you're telling them. Okay, here are the guidelines. I don't read guidelines either. So definitions and guidelines. So you kind of read through those. And by the way, this is the end of this section. So once you read those, we'll break for lunch.